Hello everyone, welcome back to the Kalopsia pod. I'm thrilled to have you guys with me this week as we kind of delve into my journal ecosystem. So, number one, I wanted to say thank you for clicking on this week's episode. And I feel like a lot of people who, started listening to the channel really enjoyed my Commonplace Notebook episode. And I thought that this week we could delve a little bit deeper into my ecosystem, right? Because I have used journaling literally as my therapist. I think it is the unique reason why I am still sane to this day. And you guys, I'm not kidding when I say this. When I was in elementary school, in high school even, a family friend of mine literally said to me, she said, "Sydney, when you get to college, I need you to get into therapy." She literally said, I was really, really great at compartmentalization when I was really younger. So anytime something really bad would happen or something crazy would happen, or I would be displaced, or if I was moved, like different country, different city, different town, whatever the case might be, I kind of like took it on the chin and I was just like, oh, still a happy-go-lucky little kid. And I feel like a lot of people around me were like, "Sydney, this isn't normal. This is kind of crazy of you. Like, how is this not, affecting you more deeply?" And even I started to think, okay, maybe compartmentalization is actually not a good thing. Like maybe this is actually a really bad sign and maybe I need to, figure out an alternative, like what's wrong with me? I literally thought that compartmentalization was a negative thing. But over time, I've kind of learned that compartmentalization isn't actually a bad thing inherently. It's actually just a coping mechanism, right? So when something bad happens, I don't immediately, get flooded with all the emotions, all the stress that is attributed to it, but rather I'll file it away and then sometimes I'll come back to it and I'll unpack it at a later time. Now, where compartmentalization becomes a dangerous thing is when you forget that coming back to it part. When you forget like that part where you have to come back and unpack it and really think about how it's affected you, at that time when it happened, at the time when you are at now, when you may be sitting down to really unpack it. And a lot of the time, that tool for people is therapy. A lot of the time, how you get past those things that you might have shoved away to the side is by talking to someone. And it's by really sitting down and having that sounding board and being able to truly, rationalize why you reacted a certain way, why somebody else reacted a certain way, and really being able to pick it apart and come out the other side more objectively. Now, I feel like when I first approached journaling, I first approached journaling in the depths of despair, right? I approached it and I was like, I remember the day actually. I think it was in my senior year or maybe junior year. I think it was around ACT time. And I was in a particularly bad mind state, frame of mind. I had some trouble in my interpersonal relationships at home, everywhere, whatever. I was having a really, really tough time all around. Like I was not happy. I was not doing okay, right? I was happy at times, but my baseline was negative, right? And that's not really who I am. Like I just said, I feel like a lot of things that would happen, I would kind of bounce back. I would still be a happy-go-lucky little kid. I would still be like, at a certain point, my mom and I kind of like had to move out of our house. We were staying in an Airbnb and then the Airbnb host like thankfully let us stay there. So we were kind of homeless. Like we didn't have our house. So then we were staying in an Airbnb and that was my reality. I went from having my own bedroom to having to share a room with my mom and that went on for like years. So like even throughout all these experiences, I was like braiding my doll's hair. I was watching Lexi Hair. Shout out Lexi Hair. I don't know if she's still around, but that really got me through my teenage years. I digress. I feel like at this particular point in time, I could not find it in me to bounce back. I did not have the capacity. So I turned to my journaling. And if you guys saw it, I'm not going to show you, but it was like, rah, rah, like I was literally like, it was pure anger. Like I was like coming to my notebook, like completely crashing out. It was actually like, before I knew what crashing out was, it was a crash out. I was crashing out in my notebook. And I feel like that was how I got into journaling. That was how I approached it. That was how I came to find it. It was a brain dump. It was my punching bag. It was literally my punching bag for everything I wanted to say but couldn't. I was silenced as a teenager, so I was like, okay, let me come in, let me write all of this down, right? Years go by. I am now in college. COVID has come, COVID has gone. Well, it's not really gone. It's still around, right? But at this point, it's maybe spring semester of my freshman year, I think is when I really decided to come back to it, right? I was dealing with a lot of issues, with my friends or not really issues with my friends, but it was a really major transitional period where my best friends that I was used to seeing every single day, in class or at least every weekend, or being able to be close to my support system, my sisterhood, if you will. And I was ripped away from that. I had to go to college. I had to start afresh. And, that's not a unique experience, but it was something that really shook me up. And I had created new friendships, some of them had dwindled, and I was kind of dealing with that kind of touch and go, kind of difficult season of life. Now, I feel like at this stage, I had kind of taken my previous approach to journaling and I approached it like a brain dump. And I got into my head that I wanted to come and journal in my notebook daily, on a daily basis. That is the discipline I wanted to impart on myself. I was saying, I'm going to show up every day. I'm going to brain dump every day. I'm going to journal. But keeping in mind that I had come to journaling as a way to crash out in the past, that's kind of the cycle that I got stuck in. And I low-key think that this is where it turned negative. Now, I want to preface by saying that the way that I journal today is something that is more balanced. I have a journal where I welcome brain dumping. I have a journal where I welcome, more intentional reflection. And then I have a gratitude journal. But I think that the important part here is how I didn't understand the power of words. I didn't understand the power of what you write down and how it will manifest into your reality. The thing is that when you approach journaling in such a brain dumped manner, what you may accidentally end up doing is manifesting that in your life more. And I'll give you an example. For the past 2 months, maybe 2, 3, maybe 4 months, there's been this one particular conflict in my life. And I would journal about it in my brain dump, notebook. I would journal. I'm like, I don't understand the situation. I'm really trying to go through this situation. And it's important to do so, especially when I say that journaling for me has become kind of like a therapeutic approach. And that's when I think that crashing out and having those kinds of moments where you're able to kind of sit with your emotions and think to yourself, okay, this person said this and it really messed with me because of this. And this is why I think that they are wrong, but maybe they're right because of this. You can do all of that on the page and it's super therapeutic and it's super, super beneficial. Now, what became dangerous and what set me back in that freshman year of journaling was, number one, the expectation of showing up every day for a crash out or for a step-by-step recounting of every single thing I did in my day. I was going in and I was saying, okay, today is blank, blank, blank of 2021. I woke up and I did this. I went to class and I did this. It made me feel this way. And then I came home and I did this. And then this pissed me off too. And then I'm going to go to bed tonight and blah, blah, blah. Good night. Next day, same thing. Blah, 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 blah. Like that expectation was already demasiado, right? It was too much. Now, the second thing that was negative in my current, approach, or not even negative, but I'm going to come back to this, right? But when I was journaling about this particular situation that's been impacting my life in the past 4 months, I've been talking about it again and again and again and again and again. I realized something and I was like, this situation isn't going to pass. The situation isn't going to end if I continue to write down and write about it on such a consistent basis. It is not going to be beneficial to me to recount this whole story, go through the same, situation, recount the same argument or pick apart the same argument again and again and again and again and again, and not be able to move on from it, not be able to, leave it behind and move on to the next. Whether or not I feel resolved in that situation, whether or not I have gained my closure, that remains to be, kind of discussed or remains to be seen. But I realized something, and it's that the second that I stopped recounting that same situation, the second that I kind of tried to be more intentional with the brain dumping of it all, the more that situation kind of dissipated. Now, with that in mind, I want to just like explain what journals I have, right? And let's start overarchingly. My first planner that I have here is my bullet journal, and I got this at, it's like that German store where they have a bunch of little like knickknacks. I'm not completely sure. I'll put it on the screen if I can remember. I'm pretty sure it's German or it's Swiss, but no, IKEA is Swiss, so I think it's German or Swedish. It might be Swedish. But they're all over the country, all over the world. But I got this bullet journal, and this one is particularly good for when you are completely overwhelmed with your day-to-day life and when you want to create a project, or when you want to start, maybe a workout journey, or if you want to start meal planning, or if you want to start, just organizing your life, organizing your mind, because at the end of the day, journaling is such a tool for the mind, and that's why I liken it to therapy. I feel like the approach that you bring to it, though, is what will determine how beneficial it is for you. If you are constantly journaling negative things, brain dumping, thinking this is negative for me, this is negative for me, you're going to continue to perpetrate that. And it is beneficial to recount all of those negative things, but you need to match it with productive conversation. You need to match it with productive reflection. And so that's where I think that the pivot from my, 2021 journey came, and pivoted out of that today. But I think there's also something to be said about how what you write down manifests in your life. But I want to get into that in a little bit, right? But first, I just want to, this is an example. If you guys are listening, I apologize, but I can kind of explain what's on my journal page. I've kind of like, it's a bullet journal, and I just like kind of like wrote down Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. It's basically just a planner, but I can be a little bit more creative of how I split up my days. And if I just want to draw in a page or two, then I can do that. But for example, here, I wanted to, study this particular subject on this day. How am I going to match that up with my other classes? Or, for example, if I want a meal plan, but I'm not really sure how I'm going to slot it into my day, this can be really beneficial. So this is one of the planners that I do have, and it's really, really organizational. The second journal that I have is one of the kind of is in the same class as the ones that I used to use for my ultra brain dumps, but now I approach these as my most intentional journaling, books, right? And previously, I had a lot of journals like these. I just got them off Amazon. I'm forgetting what they're called, but they kind of look like just these moleskin notebooks. And in them, I would brain dump to the max, max. I literally feel like at one point I was journaling like 3 to 5 pages every day, which is insane behavior. And complete brain dump. I mean, complete crash out is what I mean to say. This is years ago, right? Now I take these notebooks and I will journal in them if it's a full moon. And I love full moons and new moons because, I personally do believe in astrology, and I do believe that the moon and zodiacs do impact our lives and impact our society in ways that are invisible to the eye. One thing that I always think about when it comes to moon cycles is that if you just think about women and the menstrual cycle and how that's 28 days and how the moon cycle is 28 days and how our psyche and our bodies are impacted by this menstrual cycle, why would we fail to recognize that, society is also impacted by this 28-day cycle by such a massive thing like the moon and how it impacts tidal waves? It's literally physics, and that's why I believe in it. But anyway, I digress. In this journal, I will journal about new moons, full moons, New Year's resolutions. If I'm thinking about, maybe I heard a quote that I really like, and I'm just like, what, this made me think of this, and I really want to reframe this. That's the journal that I'm reaching for, this one right here. Here comes the commonplace journal, right? The commonplace notebook. I talked about it on here before. If you guys want to check out that episode, please go ahead. I'll link it somewhere, and I'll also link it in the bio. But this is, this is where I'm thinking essay writing. This is my personal Substack, and not really for the eyes of everyone, right? But I really do enjoy this notebook. I'm enjoying the way that it's making me more intentional about the content that I'm consuming, and really making me and inviting me to critically think about takes that are presented to me. For example, one of them was intellectualism versus pseudo-intellectualism. And I kind of want to do a podcast episode about that, so I'm not going to delve in too deep about that, but how interesting is that of its own? And maybe you just sit with that. Maybe let that sink in. Pseudo-intellectualism versus intellectualism. How do we define it? How do we distinguish it? And let me know if you want me to do an episode on that, because I really thought it was interesting. I'll link the video that inspired me to write about that too. I can leave it in the description. It was a girl, I'm forgetting her name, but she interviewed a bunch of philosophy professors at her university about the concept. And I thought it was really interesting. Now, my final notebook is something that I still religiously come to. And this is actually something that I've spoken about extensively, I'm positive. But I feel like it is something that I'm still sticking with, and it is my morning pages notebook. Now, the morning pages notebook is one of the things that is presented as a task to do in the artist's way, which is a book and a program where I think it lasts about 8 weeks. And on week 1 or 2 or something, she proposes all the readers to engage in this morning pages notebook. And we're invited to write 3 pages, stream of consciousness every morning as soon as you wake up. And I think that this is a core difference between the crash out journaling at the end of the night and the morning pages in the morning, right? I feel like the crash out pages at the end of the night, it's kind of like you're unloading, everything that you dealt with that day, but it's also kind of filling you with negative energy leading into that day. And I feel like that is where my problem lied with my previous approach to journaling. However, what I really enjoy about the morning pages notebook is that any type of stress, any type of overthinking that you may have been carrying into this new day, you're immediately getting it out of your mind first thing in the morning, and you immediately feel lighter and happier to go out into your day after that. And not only that, but it's a great space for any little inkling, any little idea that may be popping into your head, some creative idea that you might have thought of. Something that I thought of was, I wrote a manuscript, essentially, like a little book. And I've since decided to halt my writing process on that because I think I kind of outgrew it and it was kind of not really serving me anymore. But something that came to me when I was doing my morning pages was, what if I did a little aesthetic little video and read the chapters that I was able to write instead? What if I kind of approached that manuscript in a different way and, limited myself a little bit less in how I want to put that into the world? Now, sometimes it can be difficult to open yourself up to inspiration and open yourself up to new ideas creatively or otherwise when you are constantly occupied. And I feel like the morning pages, it's not like you are already overloaded with experience and with all of these things that you've carried throughout the day only to dump about it at night. But it's rather something that it's kind of giving you that space. You wake up, your mind is kind of empty. Sometimes that's what the journaling is. It's like my head is empty right now. I'm not really thinking about anything. I turn the fan on, the breeze feels pretty nice. Breeze makes me think of water, makes me think of ocean. Maybe it would be nice to go journaling by the ocean one day. Like, you literally never know where your mind could go. And I really appreciate the stillness that this journal provides. Now, this journal also kind of makes me think of something that I heard this YouTuber say. Thing is, I've spoken about manifestation on the channel before. But I thought that this YouTube video kind of made me open my mind up so much more, right? And the YouTuber, her name was called RZ, ARZEE. And something that I really appreciated about her was how she allowed us to reframe manifestation and the law of attraction and all of that. And something that she, coined almost, or it's not her work exactly, but she appreciated that a lot of the lessons and a lot of the teachers, including Neville Goddard, which we've spoken about extensively regarding the law of attraction, is that a lot of them really mean to say the same thing when it comes to manifestation, and that is that manifestation is instantaneous. It is something that triggers a series of incidents, and what she called it was a bridge of incidents, I believe. And a lot of people will attest to this having happened to them, and a lot of the time, what the technique is when it comes to manifestation is, scripting, which is when you write things down as though they've already happened, or when you make a vision board on Pinterest, or if you print out pictures and make a vision board. There are a lot of different techniques that you can do. But the bottom line is that you just need to ask for it. And immediately, once you ask for it, once you send that out into the universe, you no longer have control over how that thing will come to you, but what you do trigger is that bridge of incidents, and things are going to start falling into place. For example, if you say that you want a totally new friend group, or if you want to surround yourself with new people, maybe the next thing that happens when you say, I want to feel surrounded by this new group of people where, I feel really loved and I feel really supported and I feel really inspired, maybe all of a sudden your old friendships are going to break down and it's like, oh, why is this happening to me? Like, this is so horrible. I have no friends. I'm alone. I'm lonely. And you may think to yourself, why me? Like, how is this possible? Like, this is horrible. But it's that bridge of incidents. The thing is that she was saying is that manifestation is inevitable. It's inevitable that these old friendships that are no longer serving you are going to have to be let go in order for those new ones that you so desperately, reached out for to come into your life. One can't happen without the other or with the other, right? So I thought that was interesting because something else that came to mind when it came to her approach to manifestation is how she was saying that the technique is less important. And what you really need to do is ask. And I feel like when we think of manifestation and the law of attraction, we think of big actions, big actions, making this huge vision board that you need to look at every day so that it really seeps into your brain. Don't get me wrong, I love vision boards. I still make them. I have them on as screensavers as well. But I feel like we underestimate the smaller signs of manifestation. We underestimate the smaller asks. I'm a person who always makes an 1111 wish. I love an 1111. It was my angel number for years. I think I'm moving into 555, which is transformation. I'm seeing that one a lot. I'm seeing a lot of 444. Sometimes you have to also accept that angel numbers are going to change. You might see one less than you used to, but anytime I see 1111, I always make a wish. And even that, just small little thing, is me putting out into the universe, is me asking into the universe, I want this thing, I want this thing, I want this thing. The same thing is true when you're coming up to your journals. What you're writing down, what you are putting out into the world, what you are perpetrating into the world, whether that is positivity, whether that is negativity, it may come back to you. And so it's important to use our words wisely. I'm not saying not to use your journals as your therapeutic approach. I still do it. But I really think that it is a disservice to underestimate how powerful our words are and how powerful what we write is. And just like that example I drew earlier where I was dealing with this difficult situation, I was brain dumping about it, I was writing about it. A week had gone by and I was still writing about it. That's fine, 2 weeks have gone by, I'm still writing about it. Not so fine. A month goes by, I'm still writing about it. Not so fine. Stop writing about it. It will go away. It will pass. So what was really happening here is what RZ kind of made me realize is how, okay, what I'm writing about is actually really powerful. And so I started kind of shifting what I was journaling about. I would acknowledge something that is stressing me out and ping it away like a ping pong ball, right? This situation is annoying. I'm acknowledging that. I'm sitting with that. Okay, bye. This other situation might be annoying. Okay, I'm sitting with that. I'm acknowledging it. Okay, ping pong, bye. Okay. What do I really want instead? What can I substitute this with? Something else that comes to mind when I'm thinking about this is by Shonda Byrne. I think it was either in The Magic or The Secret, but I've spoken about this before, but in that, she was saying that a lot of the things that we want to manifest, for example, world peace, right? This was a crazy example of hers, and I totally agree with the impact that she says it can have. I mean, I think it could be true if all of us believed in it, but because not all of us believe in it, I don't think it's true. Exactly. But for example, she was saying if we want to manifest world peace, and instead when we protest, we shout and we scream and shout, No war, no war, no war. What you're really saying is war, 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 war. Those are the words that you're saying. Sure, you're saying no war, but the word and the vibration that you are perpetrating is war, 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 war. Instead, she was proposing that we should protest with positive affirmations, as in world peace, world peace, world peace, world peace. And I do agree. But, at the boiled down individual level, I feel like we really can apply that. And that kind of brings me into my final journal, which is something that I recently started incorporating, and that is my gratitude journal. My gratitude journal is something that I kind of have had a difficult time really coming back towards, and I feel like you have to be so strategic with where you place it in your bedroom. Now I place it on top of my book that I read before I go to sleep, on top of my bed, or right next to my bed, so that it is unavoidable and I have to look at it before I pull away my duvet and snuggle into my bed. This is an obstacle in the way of my falling asleep, and that is how I remember to come back to it. Because before I would incorporate it in my daily morning pages, kind of ritual. However, I found that ending the day with that gratitude is so it's such a high vibrational activity to do right before you're going to sleep, and I really feel like it's made me go to sleep damn near with a little smile on my face, right? And then I wake up in a better mood. I ended the day on a better mood rather than ending the day on that negative brain dump, negative mood. And I'm just obsessed with it. So what I've been doing is, very simple, literally just five little things that I'm grateful for. And that is it. And something that I took from The Magic by Shonda Byrne is that she really preaches that it's so important to be very present and in the moment when you are thinking about the things that you're grateful for. And that is how you really raise your vibration and really feel that gratitude. So what I'll do is I'll write down those 5 things. I'll write them down normally, like normal, and then I'll read it back. I'll read, the first thing, and then I'll close my eyes, take deep breaths, and just say thank you, thank you, thank you. I'll read it back and say, thank you, thank you, thank you. And I'll have a little smile on my face, right? And that's really going to invite me to sit with that gratitude and really feel it deeply for that one particular point that I am grateful for. And I'll just repeat that 5 times. I used to do it 10 in the morning pages notebook. I feel like really it is quality over quantity. You can even do 3 things that you are grateful for. You can do 1. I have a sneaky feeling that you have more than one thing to be grateful for, right? A couple examples. I'm grateful for my bedroom. If you really like your decor. I love my decor. I love my bedroom. I'm obsessed with my bedroom. I'm so happy that I get to come home to this beautiful bedroom that I love and that I feel so comfortable in. I feel like also something that I love doing when I say things that I'm grateful for is giving the reason why. I'm grateful for my bedroom because I feel so safe. I'm grateful for this food that I have because it makes me feel full and because it gives me gratitude, makes me feel satiated, and I'm so joyful, when I consume it. Now, I'm grateful for my friendships because I feel like I get to laugh more. I feel like I get to get inspired by them. Why are you grateful for that thing? And then close your eyes. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Really sit with it. And that is how you really unlock the power of gratitude. I also did a whole other episode on gratitude. Gratitude, I think, it's literally the highest form of vibration that we as human beings can attain. And it is really something that I would highly recommend incorporating into your journal ecosystem. And I honestly would recommend dedicating a particular journal to it. It can be a tiny little one like this. If you're just listening, I think it's about the size of my palm. It is tiny. It's minuscule. And, you can sneak it in your back pocket if you're somewhere, or you can just put it on top of your pillow so you don't forget. And it's so easy. It takes 5 minutes. Something else that I really love about it being small, it's less daunting, and me only doing 5 points, it's so quick. It takes me literally 5 minutes or less. And so you have less excuses to ignore it, and it is just the most amazing thing. I think that's all I have for you guys today. That is my journal ecosystem. Let's count this out. I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 journals, in my rotation that I am obsessed with. Some I use more regularly than others, and that is totally fine. I think the thing when it comes to journaling is don't put such pressure on yourself. The second that it becomes work, the less beneficial it will be to you. So loosen the reins, acknowledge that it is a form of self-care. It's something that is helping you. It's therapy, it's a friend, it's a sounding board, it's intentionality, it's critical thinking. It's nothing that's going to hurt you. It's all to help you. So the second that you see it as self-care, see it as something that's benefiting you, the more you'll be excited to reach for that journal, right? I can't think of a day that goes by where I don't reach for a journal. And that is where I am today, when I literally had to stop journaling for like a year because I had overdone it completely when I first started. And so it's just finding that happy medium for you and unlocking the magic behind them. But I think that's all I have for you guys today. I'm thrilled. I'm so thankful that you guys clicked on this week's episode and that you could spend a little half hour with me. I really hope that you enjoyed the topic. Let me know if you guys want me to do that episode on pseudo-intellectualism. Low-key, I think it would be really interesting. I think I need to do a little bit more research, but I think that is an interesting topic if you guys want to see that. I also kind of want to do an episode on how to be more whimsical. I saw this girl on TikTok say that things I do that make me feel more whimsical, and I really do feel like journaling is that for me. I feel like a little fairy with my little books and my little library of journals, and it does feel very whimsical and like romanticizing our life, so that's something else on my mind. But with that, I'll love you and leave you. Please let me know your thoughts. Leave a review, leave a comment, anything you want to do. Reach out, please, if you guys want to, at kalopsiapod, KALOPSIAPOD on Instagram and TikTok. And it's at Sydney Jotita, SYDNEY DJOTITA on Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube. And again, I'm thrilled to have had you guys with me this week, and I will see you next Friday. Bye.